Well, hi, my name is Jesus Chavez. I'm a psychologist here in Clínica Instancias de Vida. We mainly work with people that have problems with their addictive personality, with consumption of substances. That's our main focus. Our main objective is to help the patients that get here to precisely rehabilitate towards society, to living a fruitful, a good life. Something that has been taken away, obviously, but by the disorder of addiction. Our services involve the start of the process is basically the detox, which is involving the nurse, the doctor. We also have a psychiatrist that checks up on the patient when they first arrive. Obviously, me from the psychology area, I get to talk with the patients firsthand just to see how is their mental state. And the first part consists basically of making sure that all the physical ailments, usually that has to do with the abstinence syndrome, that they get their anxiety is a little bit up, and they have shakiness, and all of those symptoms. And that's the first part that we attend. And later on, we evaluate within the course of 5 days approximately, basically how the symptoms are going, if they're stable enough, and we get to make them interact with the rest of the patients here. We integrate them with the rest of the group, which is a great thing because that part of the process is the integration into a group, into the program itself. They actually start to receive different sessions, which I'll talk about in detail later on. But basically, they start to have their sessions with a consultant, which is an addict in rehabilitation that already has years of recovery process, and he shows them what the 12 steps are, this spiritual program that serves the main purpose of keeping addicts in recovery. That's in actually not in abstinence, not just stopping the consumption, but also stopping those thoughts and those character defects that drive them to hurt their relationships with themselves, with their family, with the world in general. So that's mainly what the consultant does. On the other activities that they are involved once we get into that point is individual psychology sessions. That's where me and also the other psychologists actually get to work one-on-one with each and every one of the patients, and we get to talk about what are their emotional triggers, how's their relationship with their family, which is one of the most impactful instances that generates a lot of the times this disorder. We also work with the family in this same process. Simultaneously, we work in sessions with the family. That's where we actually get to know a little bit more about the family dynamic. Usually there is a dysfunctional home, a dysfunctional dynamic, not necessarily being something like violent, but sometimes it's a distant relationship. There's different factors to take into account. But the end of it all is when we have an addict in the family, there's usually a whole dynamic that changes. So all of the family members start to get sick in one way or another. So that's what we call also codependency. Now, apart from that, they also are going to be involved in basically group sessions. They get to have their group sessions, their NA meetings. We also have psychology group sessions in which we actually work precisely on different subjects like character defects, self-esteem. We talk about emotional intelligence, and basically all of the tools that they need to rehabilitate themselves into society and into life. The part that I think is really important in this middle part of the process is basically that every day they have a schedule here and they get to work on different activities. They have some free times, of course, in which we encourage them to read any literature or self-help books. I usually do a round and just talk with them, sit with them in the couch, and we start to talk about different things about life. And I think that's one of the important parts that we do here, and I really love this, which is remembering that these are human beings. These are human lives, and we all need to be treated with dignity and respect, which is something that I like from this clinic, and I embrace it. We really want to keep that part. And also, in the same way, we keep contact with the family to let them know of how the development is going in regards to the psychology part, in regards to the physical part, because they also do exercises and talking about the different activities they do. They also have yoga, they have Tai Chi, they have some basketball training. We start to switch up and make some exercises different than those, but they really love, especially the physical part, they love that. But of those things, and that I forgot to mention, I mentioned the psychiatrist. That's also something that is, constantly being checked on, depending on how they arrive here, what are their needs in terms of meds or psychiatric medication. We do keep in touch with the family to let them know how things are going on regards to that. Not all patients require psychiatric medication, but the ones that do, we make sure that we give just the necessary for them to be able to be conscient enough to take advantage of the sessions that we have. Other than that, the sessions with the family that are simultaneously, their main focus is to help them understand how much this addiction problem has caused a lot of strife, a lot of pain in their family, a lot of pain in their whole dynamic, and we help them reevaluate how they need to change things. That the things that they do also affect their family member, even though they're trying their best. A lot of times, parents do a lot of things for love. Unfortunately, sometimes the way of demonstrating that love is not necessarily the healthiest. So we help into that part and help them understand this and start to develop a different way to actually interact with your family members in a healthier way. So that way, we are not going to be something that activates or generates more character defects in our family member who's an addict. So if we have a safer environment, if we have a healthier way of communication, well, this helps build this foundation that I'm going to talk about a little bit further ahead, in which that family member has the support, the addict has the support, but also knows that he has rules, he has something established that he needs to keep on check. He needs to keep on schedules, he needs to keep check with his family, with his communication, and on regards to the whole set of responsibilities that at some point he lost, before coming here. All the set of responsibilities and obligations that a human being has to have in order to have a fruitful life, and a life in order. I've had different cases of families and patients here. I have already some years of experience behind me, and one of the things that I've noticed is the most difficult cases, to call them difficult, are the ones in which family doesn't get involved. I've had some experiences, obviously I'm not going to talk about names, in which family members, they bring your family member here, they just want to, I understand that, of course, they're completely tired, they're completely exhausted, and they just want to let go of him and just, take care of him, right? Just fix him. Because in all this chaos that is generated around the hurricane, of the addict, families don't know what to do. The mom, dad, they already tried arguing, fighting, screaming, pushing, shoving, calling the cops. They tried, the whole 9 yards, and unfortunately, they haven't been able to do much. And it seems that things only get worse. So once they find this place, or they find a place to keep them safe, they kind of just want to let them go there and make sure that we do what we need to do. But the problem is that even if we work our best with the family member here, there is still the other factor, which is the family. They have fears, they have misconceptions about addiction. They don't have all the information. There's a lot of myths about addicts, like just simply the simple phrase that an addict chooses to be an addict, or he wants to be that way because he likes their drugs, or he likes how it feels. No. It's something very, very complicated when we talk about addiction. It's a multifactorial process, and one of those things that involves one of the symptoms, of an addict is that he has family members that he has problems with. So we need to also work on the family side, because otherwise, when the patient finishes this program, what happens is they go back to the same environment, and the family with the same fears, the same state of mind, the same deficiency, they receive him, and basically what happens is, well, they end up consuming again, they relapse, because they don't have a really support system. And that's why we try really hard to build here with the families. When we start off here, the first thing that we do is basically, like the word says, rehabilitation. The first thing we start to do is we generate in them the need for structure. They need structure. Any person needs structure. And in the case of a person with a disorder of addiction, consumption of substances, they need it even more. They really do need that structure. So from once they start, specifically once they finish detox process, the 5-day process, we take them through a schedule. Waking up in the morning, early in the morning. They have to do their chores, their morning chores. They have to go to certain meetings. They have certain sessions, and they have to be ready. So they get accustomed to this. Now we need this. Now this is happening. Now we're going to have this session. And all of these, apart from having a specific purpose, all of the meetings, all of the conferences, workshops, activities, they do have a purpose. But apart from that, having them structured for them is helping them learn that in their life they're going to need this. Because whenever they have free time, if a normal person, especially when we're talking about, for example, pandemic right now, COVID, people have problems with dealing with their anxiety because they don't know what to do at home. They have a lot of free time in their hands. Well, for addicts, it's even worse. They have a lot of time in their hands. In their mind, it's going to be thinking and thinking and thinking, not necessarily about consumption, but a lot of the times about negative things, just general gibberish, irrational thoughts that are going to take them inevitably to consumption. So we teach them to have a structure. We give them tools to be able to deal with these thoughts, which literature talks about them in character defects. But apart from that, talking more specifically about the time of them leaving, once we start to go up to a certain point in the stages of the process here, the rehab process, we start to have them involved in more important responsibilities, like working important things here at the house, special activities that are only permitted to those who get to that level, responsibilities that have to do with certain specific chores. Sometimes depending on the situation, we also get to talk about chores that involve going out for something, to go for the groceries or things like that. And also we involve the family in the sense that they obviously know about this. We tell them about this, and we continue to build this trust in this foundation. And afterwards, when they finally finish, and after they've had a lot of sessions with their family, they already planned. We help them build a plan of how they're going to be living outside. If they're going to live with their parents again, if they're going to live with whoever they're going to live at that point, we obviously look for the best outcome, the best environment. We help them build that structure. Who's going to take care of them, or if they're going to live with somebody else. When are they going to go to their meetings? We make sure that the family has this structure, and also we keep in touch. Even after they're out, we keep in touch every week, to know how they're doing, talk on phone calls. Obviously, the patient has the full responsibility and also the ability to give us a call to let us know how he's feeling emotionally, if there's any anxiety, any depression. Obviously, if they need medication, they continue on with but the main medication, right? But with a follow-up from a psychiatrist outside. But on terms of things that they have to deal with in life, like old friends, parties, events, social events, all of those things are something that generates regularly anxiety, because they're expected to act a certain way, and especially young people, they want to get back on track with their life, they want to party and do all those things, but unfortunately for an addict, it's like having an allergy. They can't go through that anymore. So sometimes not sometimes, most of the time they need the support apart from their family to give us a call, and we're in touch with them to let them know that we can support them. Sometimes they come back, just stay here a day or two, a week, just to feel things out, to feel like in a safe place, a safe zone where they're not going to be able to consume. If they have cravings, we talk about those things. And also, obviously, supporting the family in doubts that they might have. But that's generally the way that we insert them into society. Well, the best proven focus in psychology, talking about psychology, is cognitive behavior therapy. But one thing that we do is also focus in a systemic way. This means we also involve the family. Everybody is involved. And the main thing that we do here in psychology specifically is be able to start generating a consciousness of the reality that I was living outside. A lot of times this reality is distorted when they come here. That's why they go through detox. That's why they have their medication if they need to, because their mind. We're dealing with two things. We're basically dealing with the addictive personality, which is a challenge in itself. The addictive personality is basically the character defects, the cognitive distortions, all of those ways of thinking, those habits that they've developed over the years of consumption of substances, etc. And then we have also mental disorders, which are usually connected. Sometimes there's depression, apart from addiction. There's depression, anxiety, sometimes bipolar, schizophrenia, etc. So we have to deal with those two things. So just taking aside the fact that we work with the mental disorder part, we also, in this part of psychology where we talk about the cognitive distortions, we help them generate a consciousness first of what's really going on, that to make them understand that what they were going through is not really normal. It's not really healthy. Crashing a car, every week or every month, it's not something normal. Fighting with your parents every day, it's not something healthy. Or, well, I'm not going to use the word normal. I'm going to use the word healthy. It's not a healthy thing, Maybe in your mind, always thinking that people are out to get you or that the world is against you. It's not something healthy. That's a distortion, and we need to help them understand that that's not the right way or the healthy way to continue, through life. It's going to cause them the same problems. So once they start to see like this image of everything they've done, with their consumption, and then we show them like, okay, this is what you've been doing, and once they see, we make them see like in a reflection or a mirror with the rest of the patients, because the rest of the patients also get to share about their experiences. That's one of the best parts, or one of the best tools that we have as psychologists, apart from the individual session, because in group sessions, we take what we work with them, and they get to see, oh, this is what the psychologist was talking about. I see that he is being very pessimistic. I see that he is being very irrational and thinking that this is not fair, that being here is not fair, for example, right? I see now what my psychologist was trying to tell me. So they get to see this reflection, and individual therapy, we're like, okay, so Steve, this is what's happening. This is what's going on with your head. Literature also helps psychoeducation. It's basically teaching them through books and information, that scientific information about their addiction, about how their mind works now. And that helps them get a lot of insight and understand what's going on in their head. So once they understand, they can start to take a little bit more control over their emotions, because we basically are dealing with our way of thinking that affects our way of feeling. And our way of feeling affects how we act, which is basically how it happens for every person. But for addicts, it's a little bit more critical to understand. So if we think in a distorted way, if we think that the world is against us, very likely we're going to feel very, very awful. We're going to feel sad. We're going to feel angry. We're going to be defensive. We're going to feel irritated with the world, with our parents, with anybody who says anything to us. So if we get to this point, the most likely outcome is that, I don't know, I'm going to rebel. I'm going to, just go out on the street and join a group of friends, or I'm going to just say, I don't miss anything. I don't owe anybody anything, not even my parents, and I'm just gonna do my own thing, right? So this is obviously usually taking them to situations where they get hurt, or getting problems with the law, or we go to the other extremes like overdosing and things like that. So this is the part that we teach them. We start to work that in every session. And apart from that, we work this in conjunction with the families. When it gets to a certain point, we start to have family therapy. And we get to see that dynamic develop. So that's where they can see how their thoughts are affecting their relationship with their family. And we teach them other ways like assertive communication, be able to have assertive communication, emotional intelligence, and so forth. So that's like a general idea of what we do in the psychology part. One more thing that I would add, I guess, to help families and also addicts the same, because basically the family develops an addiction that's called codependency. So they're always going to be trying to rescue and fighting and trying to control the addict, the person who consumes the substance. And also the person who consumes the substance is going to at the same time feel either not responsible for anything because their family members take care of all of their responsibilities, or they're going to feel attacked. They're going to feel controlled by the other family members. So it's a cycle that occurs. It's very difficult. I understand that it's very difficult a lot of times to see this, but I want to give you just like some red flags, some general red flags, so you understand when things are going out of control. The first thing that I want you to understand is that when you think about an addict, you need to forget about the idea that he's the one who's on the street, lying in the street in the ground, just they're all dirty or without any personal hygiene. That's like one of the worst case scenarios, and let's just say that's when we haven't helped a person who was already going through that problem, when we didn't see it. That's just like the last image when they don't have support. So let's try to forget about that, because usually that's one of the things that make me feel more comfortable. Like, at least my son or my family member is not like that, so he's not an addict. So let's forget about that. Remember that addiction, the word itself, even in Latin, it means basically not speaking, not talking. Yes, not talking about emotions. So that's one of the first factors that we need to take into consideration. If in your family you notice that a family member is isolating himself, he's not talking that much, he isn't saying what he's thinking or what's going on with him. You notice that suddenly there's sudden mood changes. That they can be passing from euphoric to suddenly very calm or very angry or sad. Any distinctive mood change that starts to happen very often when previously it was just a constant or they were different. That's something to take into account. If you notice, for example, that they're going out a lot, usually in the teenager years it gets to happen, but it's still considering, unfortunately, that there are some substances that are legal. I know marijuana and alcohol, tobacco are basically from 22 years of age, right? But when you start to go out a lot, you have to take into consideration how we talked about consumption, how we talked about our emotions, how we talked about our feelings, how we talked about sex. If you answer to any one of those, it's not really a subject that I talk with my son because I believe that they do it in school maybe, or because it's something that I don't feel comfortable with, then very likely there's a red flag there. It doesn't mean that your son is an addict, but there is a risk there, because when we don't have the type of communication, when we don't have that what's the word here, like that bond, that trust, it's when it's a lot easier for it to happen. And this goes for both the family and also the addict that's going through this. If you feel, in this case the addict, if you feel that the substance that you use is something that you can control, it's something that you can quit whatever you want, I get it. That's one of the main things that an addict usually says, right? The problem is this: if we go into more rational thinking, if you think about it, we really wouldn't need the consumption of any substances, neither marijuana or alcohol or anything. In theory, we don't even need it to live a happy life. So if you every weekend need to have that drink of alcohol, I had an awful week in school, I was stressed, or I was doing this and that, and you're taking that as a pill to deal with the stress or the anxiety of life, then check yourself, because you might be developing an addictive personality. Maybe you don't have the mental disorder of addiction, but you are developing an addictive personality. We shouldn't need any of those things. If you need something, try meditation, try therapy. There's other ways. There's work to be done in those areas. But if you need to smoke marijuana, then there's an addictive personality that's being developed there. So check that red flag. Also, if you are in a group of friends and, again, not so much as peer pressure maybe, but if you feel that if you don't consume or use something, you're going to be weird, the weird one, or you're not going to be able to understand the jokes they're saying because they're all laughing a lot, which usually happens a lot with marijuana. Everybody starts to just laugh about the dumb things. Then probably you should consider that as a red flag, because you're getting into an area where it's more important what other people think, even if they don't say anything, but it's more important for you what other people think and how do they look at you instead of how you feel, right? So again, there really isn't any such justification for the consumption of substances. But anyways, I know it happens. So those are like some of the general ideas that I would like to state there. And lastly, just to end this, again, if you think that you're developing addictive personality, internet has a lot of information, but if you feel that you're going through that, look up NA, look up AA, look that information up, because they've studied this for a long time. That's like the most reliable source of information. Don't just look up websites, Wikipedia or things like that. Base yourself on scientific evidence, preferably. And try to talk it out also with your family. Just make it like something, talking about those subjects, making it something that's not a secret. That's one of the first things. Don't make it a secret. If you are consuming and you feel that it's not a problem, don't make it a secret. Talk about it with your family, talk about it with the doctor. If you really feel that it's not a problem, well, then the evidence should show you that everything's all right. If not, well, you can get the help you need on time. And for the family, also remember that I know that it's really painful to recognize sometimes when we're going through a difficult time, or when we think a family member is going through this, because it involves a lot of things, a lot of effort in different factors apart from economic. Emotionally, there's a lot of strife. But if you think that this is happening, please remember that when a person is developing an addictive personality, they don't have the right mind state. They don't have the rational thinking that a normal person has. So if you're going to be taking into account their opinions, or if you're going to be taking account their promises, you're not going to be really getting a lot. You're actually just feeding into this denial and this idea. The best thing you can do is talk to a professional and ask for the symptoms, mention your case. Even call in for information, and we can give you information about what could be developing and what would be like the best things for you to do in that type of situation, before you just take into account whatever the family member is saying. But in general, talk as a family.